justice and peace and equality.
Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. Today, we have a special guest, my guy, Mr. Nick Peebles, banker, businessman, entrepreneur. I mean, thank you for coming on the show, man.
Man, we've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Hey, man, much love, much love. Now, today, we talked about finance.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we walked together yesterday, exercised together, and we were having a conversation. You're a banker in the Metro Atlanta community. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, tell us a little about who Nick Peebles is, and tell us, a little about your background.
Yeah, so I've been in finance for about a decade now, specializing in finance and mergers and acquisitions.
Okay.
As well as commercial real estate acquisitions, major construction projects. So I've done a little bit of everything, most on the lending side.
Okay.
Then I've done some consulting work as well.
Okay. And so when did you get started in banking?
Man, I want to say my first banking job, man, was in college.
All right.
So I've been knowing it was either NFL or it was something related to me wearing a suit every day.
Right.
So first job, man, was in college. I wanted a job so bad, brother, I was walking to work every morning.
Okay.
But that was the first job, man, in college. That's where it started.
Hey, that's what's up, man. Now, yesterday we were walking, exercising as we do in the morning, trying to keep health, on the forefront, and we were talking about finances, and we were talking about the state of finances in America today, right? Tell me, where is banking, and what is the state of banking today?
So, banking it's always contingent upon who's in office, right? So regulations always dictate the health of the banking sector.
Okay.
I would say overall, just like any other industry, we're going through some challenges, right? Because there's a lot of uncertainty.
Right.
So a lot of what we do is based off of consumer confidence, the ability to loan money out, right?
Yes.
So businesses and investors want to take loans to fund these deals.
Right.
So I would say right now, man, a lot of people's on the sideline. It's some gray area going on right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, with tariffs in place, we know that we know Donald Trump is in office right now. Some people saying it's a good thing. Some people saying it's a bad thing. Some people are saying he's making America great again. He's making all of these things. Yeah. Neither here or there. But when it comes to the average American consumer, right? What are you seeing on the banking side? Are finances dropping, or are consumers, dwindling their bank accounts? Are they saving? Are they invested in money market accounts? What's going on?
So I would say there's a couple different sides in terms of banking.
Okay.
So I'm more so in the middle market, the corporate side.
Okay.
But just to speak to on the consumer side, people are living paycheck to paycheck. Wow. Right? So it is hard for people to make their daily obligations, financial obligations, whether it's putting food on the table,
yes,
gas in the vehicle.
Okay.
It is hard, and we are seeing a retrenchment within the economy. But also, it depends on what community are we talking about.
Okay.
Right? Because every community is not being impacted the same way.
Right.
So, but for the everyday hardworking American, they are feeling the prices of eggs.
Okay.
They're feeling the prices of gas, and just overall living expenses.
Yeah. So particularly in the African American community.
Okay.
Where our most of our listeners who listen to this show are in the African American community.
Yeah.
And do you see a rise in entrepreneurship first? And are you seeing entrepreneurs get what should I say, loans to start up their business? Like what's the nature of the African American entrepreneur right now versus what it was maybe 4 years ago?
So I would say by nature, we've always been creators.
Okay.
So I am seeing a lot of people dive into entrepreneurship.
Okay.
I would say in terms of the access to capital, that's always something to where the system has always need to do a better job at.
Okay.
In terms of putting money into the hands and the pockets of the people that really need it.
Right.
But I would say this though. A lot of times we talk about entrepreneurship, but the reality is there are steps that people need to take before diving into entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So I tell everybody. So my father told me. My father, he was a CPA, auditor, everything like that.
Okay.
So it's three of us, me and I have two younger brothers.
Right.
And he used to always tell us that regardless of what you do, you need to understand how to read the balance sheet.
Okay.
And the P&L.
Okay.
So have a baseline understanding of accounting.
Okay.
So I say that because our people who want to dive into entrepreneurship, we got to at least understand finance. We have to understand the baseline of accounting.
Okay.
So although I'm seeing a lot of people dive into entrepreneurship, at times we don't have the skill set needed to be able to sustain and scale the business.
Well, what about, so now, I've been doing advertising going on 15 years, and I've worked with businesses from the start, from when they launched the business, and most time I'm hearing it's a passion, it's a dream I've always had, it's, this is my gift.
Yeah.
So, you telling me that's not enough?
It's not. It's not enough, brother, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Talk to me.
I believe that it's a good starting point.
Okay.
Right? So being able to have that drive, having that vision, whatever God deposited into you, believe that to be true, but now there's other additional things that you need to do behind the scenes in order to bring that to fruition. Gotcha.
Okay, so if I'm an entrepreneur starting in 2025 in banking, and I'm coming to your bank, I'm just starting, what are some of the things that I need to have in place, to convince you to give me some money?
Great question. So I work for one of the largest banks in America.
Okay.
And a lot of people have to understand that every bank has a different credit box.
Okay.
So you may go to ABC Bank and try to get a loan, and they deny you, right? But then you go across the street to 123 Bank.
Okay.
And then they approve you.
Right.
So number one is about understanding which bank is small business friendly.
Okay.
Some banks are really good at having events for small businesses.
Right.
Having different mixers and stuff.
Okay.
But they're not putting money in your pocket because they won't lend to you.
You're exactly correct.
Right? And then you have other banks to where they're really good at lending to small businesses.
Okay.
So just understanding which banks to go to.
All right. So as a small business owner in business banking today, what type of, does it depend? Does it depend on my demographic? Does it depend on where I'm placing the business? Like, do I need a business plan? What do I need to bring to the bank in order to get, a jump start, at least to get you to look at the paper and take me serious?
Yeah. So number one, I would say this, it depends on the type of loan. So if we talking about a loan for a startup, then we do want to see a business plan.
Okay.
And we are going to want to understand the industry, right? But then the main thing that a lot of people miss, because I see a lot of people talk about credit.
Okay.
Credit is not as important as what you think it is in terms of your credit score. What we really look at is what's your experience and what's your background and what's the industry trend that you're trying to what's the industry trend for the business that you're looking to start.
Okay. And talking about industry trends in the African American community, we see a lot of barbershops.
Yeah.
We see a lot of salons.
Yeah.
We see a lot of yard services. We see, and these businesses don't often push their brand. They kind of like, social media, build, in a building. How are those businesses looked upon as sustainable businesses?
So everything you just mentioned, we categorize as it's more so fragmented markets, right? So whenever you look at lawn services, let's just say roofing companies, fence companies, all these salons, that's considered fragmented.
Okay.
There's a lot of opportunity for someone to get into a fragmented industry, especially if the barrier to entry is low.
Okay.
However, we look at scalability,
Okay.
right? So, do you have the ability to properly scale within the business that you're looking to start?
Right.
So, I never forget, early on in my career, I had a client, and this was a candle making business.
Okay.
Right? And, you know, at the time I was young, right? I was brand new in the industry. And I wanted to give these people $50,000.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm a young banker, and my why for getting into it is I just want to help people access capital.
Most definitely.
So, however, the business model was not scalable.
Okay.
Right? And because the business model was not scalable, we were not able to lend to them.
Oh, wow.
So I would say ensure that your business model is scalable.
Okay.
Because we want to see a scalable business.
Correct. And when you say, you know, lawn service, hair service, and salon service, we see those businesses are common, pressure washing businesses, those type of things. Mm-hmm. Are you guys like looking at, okay, a long term, a short term? Like, what's the common parameters? Is it like a 5-year thing you're looking at, or a 10-year 10-year venture you're looking at, you know, in order to make sure that this business is funded? Because let's just say you have a lawn service. I know a couple of lawn guys who've made $1 million, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so when it comes to it, how do you put that, you know, and say, hey man, you have a lawn service and this is your projected income. You're probably in the 5-year range of being in business, you know. Yeah. Where do we go and say, hey, okay, we can shape this model where we can give you some money?
Great question. Loaded question. Okay. To make it simple, I would say it depends on the loan product. Okay. Right? So if we're looking at a SBA 7A loan, okay. Typically the terms on that, it can go anywhere from 10 to 25 years. Okay. Right? Okay. In terms of being able to amortize that payment to pay us a loan back. Okay. So let's just say it's a 10-year loan. Right. So what we will look at, and again, it depends on the loan type. Okay. Right. Okay. So I always gotta throw that out there. Not trying to be difficult, but it depends on the loan type. So again, SBA 7A. Let's just say if it's a lawn service business. Okay. Right. And let's just say you're trying to start up a lawn service business. Right. Well, the first thing we're going to look at is, again, do you have experience out, right? And again, I just want to set the stage properly. Set the stage properly, yes, sir. Do you have experience? Well, with the lawn care business, the barrier to entry is relatively low, right? Okay. So, but nonetheless, you will want to be able to show us that you can cash flow over the next 10 years. Okay. In order to repay back that debt. Now, let me ask you this, because you mentioned SBA. Yeah. And in around 2019, 2020, we had COVID epidemic. Right? Yeah. Everybody was getting money, filing with the bank, you know, saying, hey man, I want to get my ELID loans and idle loans and all of that. Yeah. The government was giving away money hand over fist. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And a lot of people didn't use the money for the right thing. Some people used it for the right thing. Some people didn't. Right. All right. So are banks looking at, okay, well, you had XYZ during this time, and you have you may have something to show for it. You may not have something to show for it. Yeah. But are they looking at that, you know, with this new regime that's in office, saying, hey, well, we gave them $40,000-$50,000. You know, we don't know if they can manage it or not. You know, if we give them more money. Yeah. No, not at all. Okay. No. So again, the main thing we look at is the historical cash flow. Okay. So as a lender, that's the main thing I care about. Historically, what have you done? Right. Have you been profitable over the previous 3 years? Okay. And are you profitable year to date? Okay. So anything regarding loans you've got before in the past, as long as you didn't file bankruptcy or you're still paying on that obligation, okay, we don't care about the debt. Because whenever I look at a loan, I request something called a debt schedule. Okay. And on that debt schedule, it shows me all of your debts. Okay. Right? As long as you're in good standing with that debt, yeah, I don't care. As long as you cash flow,
that's a good thing.
good. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, and that matters. I believe paying your bills on time, making sure you're fluent in everything you're doing. When it comes down to handling your business, people want to see that on paper as well. Now, food for the entrepreneur. What are let's say 3 steps you would give an entrepreneur to take advantage of some of the things that banks are offering now today in business finance today? What are 3 things you think that a business owner can take advantage of?
So I'm gonna answer it a little bit differently.
Okay.
So I would say, in terms of what I would tell an entrepreneur, is buy and not build. Right. So a lot of times we get into entrepreneurship and we start from scratch. Okay. We build it from scratch.
Man.
Right. And we don't realize that instead of trying to build this lawn care service from scratch, there's a whole marketplace where you can go buy a business.
Okay. Correct.
Right? Correct. So, the analogy that I always love to use with people is whenever you want to go buy a home, or whenever you want a home, new family home,
right?
Do you go to, Lowe's to go buy the hammer, the nails, the 2x4, the plywood, the door, the windows? Or do you go on Zillow or another marketplace to look for already existing homes? Right. So it's the same way in terms of business. Okay. You don't have to build the business from the ground up.
That's interesting.
You can go buy it. You can go buy $1 million business with it's 10% down.
That's interesting, man. That's interesting, man. Whew. So you're telling me, and like I said in the beginning of the show, a lot of people start their business. Oh, I had a dream to be a beautician. I had a dream to be a whatever. But you're telling me one of the best options and one of the key things that we're missing out on is buying into business.
Business acquisitions.
Business acquisitions, man. Tell us about that build and buy. Tell us about that build versus buy process you were just.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal because it accelerates your growth. Because now, if you go buy a business, you're buying the customers. Okay. You're buying the infrastructure. You're buying the equipment. You're buying the workers. Okay. Right. So now you're not starting from the ground up.
Man.
You walking into a position to where it's already cash flowing. Okay. And a lot of times, whenever I'm structuring these loans for clients, I'm also building in your salary. Right. So you're also paying to have your own salary. Right. But if you're building from the ground up, you don't have a salary.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Man, we're going to go to a commercial break because we got to take a commercial break and recognize some of our sponsors, man. But we got Nick Peebles, entrepreneur, banker, right here on Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. You guys stay tuned. Ease up.
When it comes to your health or the care of a loved one, nothing matters more than trust, compassion, and comfort right at home. At Baylor Home Healthcare Services, LLC, we bring professional, personalized care to the heart of rural Georgia. Our skilled team is dedicated to treating every client with dignity, respect, and the attention they deserve. Whether you're recovering from surgery, managing a chronic condition, or simply need support day to day, we're here for you. With tailored programs, confidential care, and flexible scheduling, Baylor makes your well-being our top priority. We offer nursing services, personal support, and companion sitting services. Because at Baylor, your home is our care setting. Call us today at 478-365-9062 or visit BaylorHomeHealthCareServices.com. We accept various insurances, Georgia Medicaid accepted. Discover care that feels like family with Baylor Home Health Services, LLC.
Have you fallen and can't get up? After the car accident, you just don't feel the same. DePaul Clinic is dedicated to help you relieve the pain. We specialize in personal injury setbacks, guiding your journey back to normal. We provide head-to-toe examinations, X-ray, and MRI, treating personal injury with adjustment, non-surgical decompression, and laser therapy. Our pain management specialists pride themselves on helping our patients to a speedy recovery every step of the way. Call us today at 770-471-1421 for booking, or visit us online at www.depaulclinic.com for more information. Our reviews speak for themselves. DePaul Clinic, the good hands quality care plan.
Game Changers Media Network, Game Changers Magazine, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. And we're back with entrepreneur and banker, Mr. Nick Peebles. And before we went to break, Nick, we were talking about business acquisition versus buying versus building, right? Yeah. And we were talking about some of the things that entrepreneurs struggle with when they're building a business. They are building the business.
Right.
When they're buying into the business, it's more of a business acquisition.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about salary, because most people think when they get into entrepreneurship that, hey man, I'm just gonna get this money, man. I'm gonna be balling out of control, go on vacation when I want to, live a free life, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
All right, tell us let's fall back into that.
So, full transparency. Again, I've been doing this for the last decade.
Okay.
And I've noticed different behaviors based off of different races and ethnicities.
Okay.
Right. So in terms of our people.
Right.
Whenever we start a business, a lot of times we're trying to fund our lifestyle because we need the money.
Right.
And then opposed to other races and ethnicities, whenever they have additional cash flow coming in, they allocate that capital to the infrastructure of the business.
Okay.
Right? So, now, again, we're talking about consumer habits. Right? So I believe the best way in terms of, an entrepreneur, you have to put money back into the business, and you have to be willing to reduce your lifestyle in the early years until you're able to afford the G-Wagon or any other, whatever your preference of vehicle is, right? Whatever that luxury vehicle is, we have to be able to sacrifice a lifestyle that we want to live, even though the money is coming in, because we got to put that back into the infrastructure.
Man, I'm telling you. So infrastructure is one thing, but how do you pay yourself as a business owner starting out? Because do I need to get a job? Do I need to like depend on the business? I need employees. I need people to work for me. I got rent to pay. The list is loaded. Not only rent to pay for your business, but rent to pay at home.
So again, it depends on the strategy, right? So if you're doing a business acquisition, what I do is I look at all of your personal debts. Right? So I pull the credit report and I see, how much is your mortgage or your rent, how much is your car note, the credit cards. I look at all that to make sure that you can afford to pay yourself, because we understand as lenders that if you can't afford to pay yourself, once you acquire this business, you're not going to be able to mentally continue to operate this business long term. Correct. So, in terms of how you pay yourself the same way you pay everybody else. You put yourself on W-2 income. Depending on the setup, you can also pay yourself through distributions as well. If you pay yourself through distributions, that comes from tax advantages, I would say. Opposed to just straight out W-2 income.
Now mixing, I think one of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs have is mixing their personal money and business money.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way for an entrepreneur, coming from the business world, your business background, looking at an entrepreneur on paper, what do you think are some of the best ways for an entrepreneur to actually manage their money from and separate it from a business and a personal standpoint?
Well, I would say at first you have to have enough coming in to be able to separate. Right? Because early on in the early years, it may be hard if you did not go the business acquisition route, and if you're building from the ground up, those two will be commingled.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and in a situation like that, maybe it may be ideal for you to be a S corp. Right? So then, therefore, it will flow through on your personal tax returns as well, the revenue from the business. In which it may make sense in terms of commingling, because now you have the ability to write off certain things. So let's just say you buy a car. A lot of people want to buy a car, and then you can write it off against the business. Right? So that's a situation where it may make sense in terms of commingling. But I would say always get with the advisor. Always have you a good team of you always want a CPA, you want an attorney, and you want a banker, and you want a consultant. Right? So those are the main
lawyer.
people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those are the main people you need so you can properly build this thing out early on before you just kind of dive into it.
Okay. And it sounds like a lot of expenses out top.
It can be.
It sounds like a lot of expenses out top and some of those things that kind of, go on in the business world for business entrepreneurs. I think one of the let's talk about business entrepreneurship from a global standpoint.
Okay.
Right. With the tariffs and let's say I own a business and my business is product driven.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And being that my business is product driven, what effect are the tariffs that are being put in place by President Trump, with other countries? What effect is that having on small business owners today?
Well, it's going to have a major impact.
Okay.
But also it depends on the products you sell and where you're sourcing them from. Okay. So, obviously we all know China is one of the main suppliers in terms of the goods that businesses sell. Okay. But also, if you look around the map, Vietnam is big on shoe production.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
in which, that's why I say it really kind of depends on the product that you're selling. Okay. But small businesses, they are going to be impacted tremendously by tariffs. We're already seeing it. Okay. I believe that we haven't really seen the full ramifications of the tariffs just yet. I believe that's going to come later on this year, probably Q3, Q4 of this year. Is when we should really see the full impact of the tariffs.
All right, so we're about halfway. We're about almost finished with the second quarter of the year, right? Yeah. Now, right. Yeah. Where are we at in the second quarter of the year as far as banking looks? For the not just the entrepreneur but the average consumer.
Well, I would say a lot of people's on the sideline right now. Right. So a lot of people just kind of waiting. Okay. Right. Because we're going through a major shakeup right now within our economy. Right. So, because of that, the investors are on the sideline, the businesses are on the sideline in terms of making these, heavy investments needed to continue to be competitive within the marketplace. Okay. Right? So, everyone's a little nervous. Everyone's a little bit on, pins and needles. Right. I believe the best companies are the ones that have a lot of cash on the balance sheet that can weather the storm, however long this storm lasts.
Now, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is high on the rise, and right now, depending on where you are, depending on how you invested or didn't invest, they're telling you this Bitcoin. What are the banks looking at when it comes to like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? What are they looking at? Can you depend on this money or can you not? What's the status of Bitcoin and how does it play into banking?
Yeah, so the side of the fence that I'm on in banking, we don't talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not even really a fact.
Bitcoin, okay.
On the side that I operate on, right? So within corporate finance, we're not talking about Bitcoin at all. Okay. I would say in terms of my personal belief, I've never been a big Bitcoin fan. All right. Nor have I been a big crypto fan. Okay. Just because it really doesn't hold intrinsic value. So because it doesn't really hold intrinsic value, how can we really put a true valuation on that? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because typically a valuation is driven through what? The performance of the company, right? Correct. So the balance sheet, the P&L, that's how you put a valuation on something. Okay. What is Bitcoin? Right? So when I look at that, it can be easily manipulated, I believe, in terms of the price. Okay. I'm not saying that you haven't had people to be able to, fund the lifestyle from it or, acquire certain assets because you can, but it's the Wild Wild West right now, and in the Wild Wild West, anything goes because it's unregulated.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, and you talk about on the corporate finance side, and what we're trying to do in this conversation is build that entrepreneur, that small business owner role. Yeah. Like you say, in the business acquisition, and most entrepreneurs, at times we get to a point we're looking for the fast money, we're looking for the dope boy style money, and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency seems to be that. Hey man, I could throw it against the wall and man, I could have $1 million in cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we've seen people buy Bentleys. We've seen people buy homes with Bitcoin, So you're telling me on the United States finance banking side, that's not even a factor going into the corporate world?
Yeah, based off the side of the fence that I'm on, right? So now I do know that they are working to try to regulate the crypto industry for it to be its own marketplace.
Right.
I'm not really in the business of predicting. I always just take everything for face value for where we are now.
Okay.
And I know where we are now, the way I view Bitcoin.
Okay.
Is, again, if we had a football game, if we had a soccer game,
right.
Bitcoin is the fan that's streaking in the middle of the field because it's going to caught everyone's attention, right? And we all watching until security comes to haul off Bitcoin off the field.
Okay.
So in my mind, that's how I view Bitcoin.
Right.
But we'll see how it pans out.
All right. So moving right along in what you specialize in, corporate banking.
Yeah.
All right. The big companies.
Yeah. Middle market up to around 50 million in top line revenue.
All right. What's the status of them in America right now? Because they seem to, they're making $250 million.
Yeah.
Business like Target, of course, Pastor Jamal Bryant, he led a boycott against Target, but it didn't seem to affect them.
Actually, so Target is feeling the impact. I believe Target revenue was down 3%.
Okay.
3% on a multi-billion-dollar revenue-sized company is pretty material.
Okay.
So I would say Target is feeling it.
Okay.
I know Target is trying to change their strategy. I recently read on the Wall Street Journal that Target is now looking to try to target more so rural communities, right? The communities that really align with the current administration and support the efforts of reducing DEI. But we'll see. I would say in terms of middle market, though, we got to understand that as we're making that transition from small business and continue to scale, the world is really globalized.
Absolutely. So, with the internet, with digital marketing,
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, as long as you have a diversified customer base, you'll be able to, again, withstand any type of economic downturn. So the businesses within the middle market space, they're still doing good. And they have access to capital that small business don't.
Okay.
Right. So they're able to leverage something called private credit.
Okay.
And private credit specializes in lending to the middle market size companies.
Yeah. Okay. I see exactly what you're saying. And so, how does that small business owner get to that corporate? Because you made a statement. You said recognizing your demographic, who you're marketing to, and not just one nationality.
Yeah.
And most times with African American businesses, we have one target market.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's all on just that on the business owner, because some nationalities just don't buy from African Americans unless it's like food. They go out to eat at their restaurant, something of that nature. So, tell us how can African American businesses diverse into other markets and produce a market of consumership from other nationalities?
So I would say number one, it's about us adapting our mindset, changing our mindset, because people of color make up 78% of the world's population.
Okay.
So in terms of other people not really wanting to do business with us, that's not all the way true. So I know.
Correct.
I know when I began to expand out, I have a strategic business partner that's in China.
Okay.
And whenever you begin to explore business on a global level in other countries, they are a lot more receptive to us than what we've been led on to believe. Right. I also have relationships in Brazil. It's the same way. I have relationships in Ireland. It's the same way.
Man.
So I would say in terms of that entrepreneur, number one, you absolutely have to diversify.
Yes.
And you have to create a product. Number one, I believe a lot of us, we get in business because we recognize that our community is lacking something.
Okay.
Right? So it's this moral compass within us that forces us to create this product that we need that's missing within the marketplace for our people.
All right.
the issue with that at times
Okay.
is that we know our people may not have the same amount of discretionary income to spend on outside pleasures, whether it may be lawn care or it may be a restaurant. We may be not able to afford to do that on a consistent basis the same way other demographics can.
Yes.
And because of that, we see this kind of wavering support in terms of our revenue whenever we do mainly just focusing on us. Okay. So now we have to create a business model to where let's create a product or a service to support us.
Okay.
But then let's also create a product that's or a service that's highly profitable. So to give you an example, Lexus and Camry, owned by the same company.
Yes, sir.
Marketed to two different demographics.
Okay.
As black people, we need to understand that we can still create a product to support us.
Okay.
But we also need to create a product to where it's solely driven based off of margin and profitability.
Okay. Now, when we're looking at margin and profitability, and we're looking at some of the things for as a business owner, we're looking at creating products, the market is oversaturated on a lot of business ideas that we come up with, or that we actually see in the African American community, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you see that can grow? Or do we need like partnerships? Do we need like because a lot of times it's like, this is my baby and I don't want nobody to touch it, when it comes to our business. Like, how do we need to grow as entrepreneurs so that we can unify and present this picture to the bank that's saying, hey man, not only am I just coming to you asking you for money, but we have investors, we have people that interest, we have people that are business partners with us that's seeing the vision of what's going on.
So I would say we need to have a diversified ecosystem within Black America. Okay. So, and the main way we access this is through education. So, we have, to your point, there can be a saturation within our communities with maybe restaurants or, a lot of people, a lot of us go for what we see and what we know. Okay. But we need the Black doctors, we need the Black scientists, we need the Black engineers.
Yes.
We need us in all these spaces so we as a people can continue to grow and thrive. Okay. And then we will have the capital needed to turn around and help support the small businesses within our community. Okay. Right? But a lot of times, because we're not diversified enough, because there's not enough of us in all these different spaces and sectors, that's why it feels overcrowded and oversaturated.
So we just celebrated Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
We just celebrated Cinco de Mayo. We're getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that we, we celebrate, Mexican restaurants are packed now on Cinco de Mayo. African Americans are celebrating over here.
Yeah.
But we're buying products, we're buying beads, we're buying all the tequila that we can buy up, when we're there. But when it comes like the Juneteenth, it seems like a one-dimensional product designed to a one-dimensional nationality.
Right.
Right? Right. So how do we get America to buy into our celebration day? From an economic standpoint, when we talk about diversity. So, hey, we feel your pain, but feel our pain. Yeah. You know what I mean? How do we diversify that when we're celebrating cultures? Because it seems like African Americans celebrate cultures, everybody else's culture, but nobody else celebrates ours.
Yeah. So, great question. I believe whenever we look at the Hispanic culture, the Hispanic culture is more so a culture of fun, right? So whenever you think about, Mexican food, or a Mexican restaurant, you thinking of tequila shot, nachos, right? You thinking of that's the food. Vibe, party food.
Yes.
Well, whenever you think about the Black community's culture,
Juneteenth,
that's not really it's something to be proud of because it was a time to where we were able to advance, but we don't necessarily have a product outside of entertainment
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
To where we can really celebrate. I feel like those are two different. It's just two different vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
It's two different vibes.
And man, I see exactly where you're going with it because it's more like it's a celebration on one side, and then on the other side, it's kind of like, okay, we shall overcome. It's daunting, it's dragging.
It's still a lot of trauma that we still going through from there. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's really hard to celebrate.
Wow.
In terms of everyone coming together.
Absolutely.
I think it's hard for other races to celebrate that.
And you know, and with that being said, I mean, I think we gotta, change our minds as African American entrepreneurs. Like you said, diversify the message, diversify, who's buying into us, who's not buying into us, and I think it's built on relationships as well.
Absolutely. So
more so than color and nationality.
Yeah, and it's also about how we telling our story.
Okay.
Right? So I believe the best period, and this is my personal opinion, right?
Right.
I believe the best period for Black people, in terms of a positive story being shared, was the 90s. Whenever you look at the different sitcoms, you saw Black positivity. Right. You had Martin, right? One of my favorite shows of all time.
Okay.
To where it was pure comedy, it was pure fun. That entire era where you look at Boomerang, to where the Eddie Murphy, the main character, was head of a marketing company. It was showing Black positivity. Right? It was showing Black excellence. I believe that we need to continue to push more Black excellence in terms of the form of media, right? Outside of what you're doing, because what you're doing is phenomenal.
Appreciate it, baby.
You know what I'm saying? But in terms of the different movies and the sitcoms, we've had enough D-boys, right?
We've definitely had enough of that.
So I believe if we continue to curate a positive message around Black culture and get people comfortable with Black culture, because we know they love our music, right?
Right.
And they can recite it, and they'll be at all the concerts. But in terms of actually celebrating us for us, right, being happy for us, I think that's gonna come with time, and that's gonna come with us curating a new type of message, a different tone to the world.
Man, we're gonna talk about more about banking, the evolution of the African American entrepreneur. All of that, man. You guys, we gotta go to another commercial break, but I got Nick Peebles right here. Entrepreneur specialist, banking specialist, influencer, man. He's dropping some major nuggets here on Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. You guys stay tuned. Ease up.
At a New Well, we believe every day should be lived with dignity, comfort, and care. Located in the heart of Stockbridge, Georgia, our adult day center offers a safe, welcoming environment where compassion meets quality service. Whether your loved one needs daily support, engaging activities, or just the warmth of a friendly smile, we're here. At a New Well, we provide high-quality care, either in our beautiful facility at 931 Rock Quarry Road or from the comfort of their own home. Our dedicated team ensures every individual lives life to the fullest. And with Medicare Advantage and other insurance options accepted, peace of mind comes standard. So when you're ready to give your loved one the care they deserve, call a New Well today at 1-800-341-0120. That's 1-800-341-0120. Or visit anewwellinc.com, where care, comfort, and compassion flow together. Did you know 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer? And studies show men die faster from breast cancer due to late detection. At Breast R Us, we're changing the game with safe, painless, and radiation-free ultrasound screenings for both men and women. Our ultrasound screenings are quick, 15 minutes or less, with no compression, no pain, and implant-safe technology. Our scans help detect breast cancer earlier, especially in women with dense breast tissue, where traditional mammograms can miss. Ultrasound increases cancer detection from 47% to 97%. Why wait? Take advantage of this special, only $249. Early detection could save your life or the life of someone you love. Call us today at 478-258-3431 or visit breastrus.com. Breast R Us, protecting lives through early detection.
Right. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. We're back with Mr. Nick Peebles, entrepreneur, banker, businessman. We're dropping some major nuggets here and right here. And before we wrap up, want to talk about how are interest rates changing the scope of corporate America in lending right now? Like with the tariffs that's in place, how are interest rates playing an impact on corporate America, corporate lending, and not just corporate lending, but medium-sized to small business as well?
Yeah, so I would say on the small business side, to keep it relevant, interest rates have been going down. So, we base it off of the prime rate. Prime rate is currently sitting at 7.5, and it's been going down over time. I believe probably about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
It was a lot more expensive to borrow money. I was
yes.
But now I would say interest rates are going down. They are still a little bit high, a little bit elevated from historically what they've been.
Okay.
But it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. So buying homes and
That's a different rate.
Buying buildings.
Buying
what I would say is buying corporate locations.
Okay.
Commercial real estate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I would say this in terms of the residential. So if we looked at residential mortgages, that's high.
Okay.
Right. So it's a couple different things. So small business loans.
Okay.
That's based off of what we call the prime rate.
Okay.
Mortgage rates is based off of the 10-year Treasury note.
Okay.
Right. Those are two different rates. They can be variable. They can be fixed.
Right.
But on the residential side, it's high.
Okay.
And you tie that in with the affordability of housing.
Okay.
Right. I believe like the average home now in America is like $450,000.
Yes.
That's
yes.
high.
That's high.
So
That's high.
$450,000 on top of higher than normal interest rates.
Okay.
Interest rates sitting around, I think around 7% to buy a home right now.
Okay.
And the issue is wages has not caught up with the cost of living.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, it definitely hasn't. It definitely hasn't.
Yeah, in terms of that realm, it's high.
It's high. And what effect does this play on corporate America? Because if that's high, I mean, does that slow down, consumer buying, or consumer,
So it depends on the sector,
Okay.
right? So you have different sectors within our economy as you know.
Okay.
So I would say what we're seeing though is you have this is a great time for a lot of investors to come in, mainly institutional investors.
Okay.
So when I say institutional investors, think about the Progressive or the Tricons of the world, like these major players within investment real estate.
Okay.
That's probably owned by BlackRock. Right? You familiar with BlackRock?
Yeah, yes, definitely familiar.
Okay. So to where they have the pocketbook to go out and they can buy a home cash.
Well, we see that happening right here in South Atlanta right today.
30%.
Yes.
30% of our homes is owned now by institutional investors.
Okay.
Right? So in terms of the corporate side, it's fine. In terms of borrowing money.
Okay.
In terms of the consumer side, especially residential,
Okay.
It's tough.
So what type of risk and regulations are banks putting on on loans, on giving loans and managing credit that's being handled right now on a corporate level as far as a consumer level? Like, what are some of the rules and regulations that are in place, like, that are affecting America today?
So, because I want to answer you accurately.
Okay.
So, in terms of the regulations, that's set by the administration.
Okay.
Right. In terms of the banks, the way the banks adjust for risk is through the what we call the credit box.
Okay.
So they may tighten up the credit box a little bit to where they may not do as risky loans. They look for a higher credit score. Okay. They may look for instead of being able to lend to somebody that's making $70,000. depending on the price of the home they're trying to purchase,
Right.
they may require you to make more money,
Right,
right?
right.
Opposed to maybe a couple years ago you didn't have to.
Right.
So I would say overall, banks kind of tighten up the credit box
Okay.
because they don't want to make risky loans. They don't want risky loans on the books.
So I guess what you will see in this new consumership is more two people homes now. Like because it seems to be hard for one person to qualify for to buy a home or to rent a home based on the salary. Like you say, the wages don't even match the
Cost of living.
The cost of living.
Yeah. Dual income is absolutely mandatory right now. Right, like that's.
But I'm balling. I'm living my best life.
Yeah, well, to an extent, right? So, unless you're fortunate enough to have a career to where
Okay.
you're making enough money to keep the wife at home and take after the kids and all that. But majority of people aren't living like that.
Right.
Majority of people have to have multiple jobs. But I will also say this though, it's not a bad thing to have multiple incomes coming into a house, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
One of my clients, they own a very famous jewelry store here in Atlanta.
Okay.
Right? And they all live in one house. And this jewelry store, it's a multi-million-dollar business.
Okay.
And all the family members, regardless of how much they making, they all still live in one house.
Okay.
Right? Because they don't, it's their culture. They don't really believe in having all this debt when they all can be living in one house and continue to grow their wealth.
Okay.
Right? So that's a strategy that they choose to exercise. I believe as black people, I believe we have to maybe adjust our preference, our living preference, to where we can pull from these other cultures and races in terms of, you know what? Maybe it might be a good idea to live in a big enough home and have multiple people, right? Live in the home, whether it be a brother, a sister, a cousin, somebody that you can coexist with within four walls.
Yeah.
So therefore, you guys can reduce the expenses. Now everyone can save, and now you guys can turn around and grow wealth together.
Man, it's interesting you say that because I see many cultures building compounds, buying large homes. But it seems like in the African American community, everybody gotta have their own.
Yeah.
Everybody gotta have their own. And I'm like, yo, you're one person in a three bed house.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? Sleep in all three rooms?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because a lot of our wealth is going directly back to the banks.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if you're one person living in a home, 3-bed home, I think it would be wise that, hey, me and my sister or me and my brother can live together. Me and my mom can live together.
Yep.
Like I've pitched the fact to my mother over and over. I'm like, hey mom, you're getting older. It's time to let's get a house where we get the mother-in-law suite and we're all on one property paying one tax, But how do we get that ideology, transcribed into our people so they understand the benefit of this, and we'll be able to live fruitful lives, man. Because that's a tough one to cross.
It comes to the messaging.
Okay.
Right? So I believe, again, we have to change our messaging through music, through media, through content.
Okay.
And I believe once we begin to do that, then we'll be able to turn around and be more open-minded to having your mom live with you, right? Maybe have your uncle, your father, because, everybody know that song with no scrub. Everybody know the lyrics to that.
Come on, man.
Right? So no guy I know wanted to be that scrub.
Yeah.
Right? So I believe because of that and I'm not just saying that song, I'm just saying just in general.
Right.
Because of the messaging that we've had and because of the aesthetic that's associated with you not being on your own.
Okay.
That's why we turn around, we go out and get the 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, although we living by ourselves. Or that's why we don't want to have any type of roommate, because we want to signal to the world, right, that I can do this on my own.
Right. And it's funny, man, because housing, mortgages are right now about $2,000, $2,500 for people doing.
On the low end.
Wow.
Yeah. I would say probably on the lower end.
Wow.
And that's somebody who probably bought in when the interest rates were maybe around 3%, 2.8, somewhere around there. I mean, today, if you was to, based off of a 7% rate, based off of the average home being around $450,000, you paying a lot more than $2,500. Depending on how much you put down, you paying a lot more.
Depending on how much you put down. And from a global, let's talk about banking from a global perspective as well. From a global perspective, coming back home, bringing it back home. So what's happening right here in America? How are banks dealing with global currency and foreign transactions? When it comes down to, if we want to diversify the market and we want to make sure that we're feeding and interacting with different cultures, what is the banking perspective on that when it comes to supporting global currency and foreign exchange?
So I would say our currency is dependent upon investor confidence. Okay. So as America, we make money a multitude of different ways. One of the main ways we make it is through selling our bonds. Okay. Right. Gotcha. So whenever you look at, again, China is one of the largest bond holders in terms of American bonds. I believe they have about $800 billion worth of American bonds. Wow. Right? So it's all about investor confidence. I believe right now investor confidence in terms of America's economy, we're still the number one economy in the world. So I want to say that first. We're still the number one economy in the world. But I believe we have some making up to do. I believe we have to get rectify some of the geopolitical issues. Okay. So we can continue to be that powerhouse, not just today, but 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
Now we were talking about while we were doing the break. Yeah. And I know we haven't done the research on it, but we just seen in the trending topics where the Ghana dollar is outperforming the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, the Ghana currency. Yeah, in which again, I'm not sure what period of time. I'm not sure if it's over the last 30 days, year to date, but I find that interesting. But a lot of people don't realize there's a lot going on. There's a lot of opportunity in terms of investing in African countries.
Well, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it with one of my peers. I know a young lady who is right now is buying land over in Ghana, and it's like she's a real estate agency over in Ghana, and probably making more money over there in that perspective than she is in America right now. Because like you said, the corporate typhoons are basically, they're bombarding Atlanta.
Yeah, they're in Atlanta, but I believe if you look at some of these big wealth funds and everything like that, private equity, a lot of these companies, they're already investing heavily in Africa. Whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's, to your point, people buying land. Right. It's a lot of opportunity just in African countries right now.
Yes. Now, where do we go from taking all that we discussed today? How do we move forward so that this third and fourth quarter that we're looking at, going into, because we know Christmas time is coming, holidays is coming, and those are some of the times when people commit the worst crimes, suicide happens, people get discouraged because, man, I used to take my family here for Christmas, or I used to do this for Thanksgiving, but now because of the way money and the way, the currency is maybe not flowing right now, it's preventing those things. What do we look to bring hope to the third and fourth quarter? How can we change the game and change that narrative?
Well, I would say to hedge against any type of risk, the main thing that we have to do is just continue to educate ourselves. So continue to read different articles, whether it's Wall Street Journal, whether it's Barron's. So you want to be educated first. Right. I believe the biggest disservice that anyone can do is not be educated. So it's one thing to read headlines, and watch clips. It's another thing to do your own research.
Man.
Exactly, and I'm talking, even if it's only 30 minutes a day, but take time out to read and know what's going on around. That's right. The country and the world. That's right. Right. In terms of, going into the third and fourth quarter,
Okay.
I believe the biggest thing is just to try to save as much capital as possible, to have as much cash on hand as possible.
Okay.
But also continue to develop in yourself.
Okay.
Right? Continue to invest in yourself.
Right.
Excuse me. And I believe that's the biggest investment anyone can make.
Yes.
Because whether we're going through an economic downturn, a retrenchment, whether we're going through a great period in terms of a business, we have to continue to invest in ourselves.
We definitely have to do that.
So that's the biggest thing, brother.
Okay.
So continue to read, continue to invest in yourself.
Man, we want to thank you for taking the time out, sharing the knowledge, in finance today. Look forward to definitely bringing you back, talking more as our audience engages on some of the things that are, they're concerned about.
Yeah.
Moving into the third and fourth quarter of the season, how money is going to play out, what's the expectation of small business owners, what's the expectation of corporate business owners. Also, we want to give a huge shout out to Game Changers Magazine. Game Changers Magazine 2025 Summer Edition featuring Victoria Maylon, Miss Locust Grove, Miss Junior National, Miss Junior Georgia. She also just actually landed the lead role in the stage play Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz. She's traveling nationally. She's doing big things. You guys make sure you go to the website and get your digital or print subscription of this publication. And we thank you for your support. Want to thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate you,
Now, anything else you would like to share with our audience before you go?
No, I just want to say, man, you're doing a phenomenal thing, man, for the community.
We appreciate it, man.
I'm going to continue to follow and be a fan, brother. And anytime you want me to come on, you got it.
Most definitely, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts the conversation.